up? What up? What up?
Oh, shit.
Welcome to episode 94 of Michigan Brews.
What the hell is this? Who the hell are you?
Who are you? I feel like I'm alternating dates with my two favorite co-hosts here. So
Yeah, Jordan's working or get stuck to work. I think I got stuck working last time.
is what it is. It's the way the world works. Monday night.
You didn't go out and get a bunch of other people to hang out with though, so
I didn't. No, Jordan's entertaining with other people and stuff, and you're just kind of you what. Maybe people said no. Maybe it's like, oh, Jordan or no, Jason. I don't know, man.
No, totally. I get it. I'm the asshole.
I haven't been drinking nearly enough to like form coherent sentences yet tonight, so maybe we can fix that a little bit. What do you got going on?
I am drinking hams, but I actually have a selection of other mass-produced macro beverages next to me to drink as the night goes on.
Perfect.
So, and if I run out of these, because usually only 4 cold beers in the house at the moment, so if I run out of these, then it's either whiskey or wine. So this could be a great night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how long we can talk about packaging and still make it interesting, but we'll see where the night takes us.
I mean, I find it enrapturing. So,
what did I name the episode? Exhilarating.
Exhilarating
world of packaging.
What are you drinking?
I've got some homebrew New England IPA. This is a recipe based off of a Treehouse video that Tim Wicklund and I did last month. It's pretty darn good. I brought it to Keepers last meeting, so you may have had it.
I did have it, and I didn't pour whiskey in it either. So
you did not, and I appreciate that one. Yeah. So tonight we're going to be talking about packaging. Before we get into that, we're going to be talking about transferring and bottling and kegging and priming sugar, and I think we can even get into like shipping a little bit and equipment and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, we'll talk all sorts of oxygen talk, but maybe we can go over a quick recap of how things are going with the Michigan Beer Cup.
Absolutely, I think they're going swimmingly. So we have a site. In fact, I need to get a post out. We do have a location for judging, and we have firmed our judging dates. So we are absolutely judging on June 3rd and 4th, which is a Saturday and Sunday. First Saturday and Sunday in June at Rochester Mills Production Facility. We are going to get started at about 9 a.m. With judging to start at about 9:30. We have a fair amount of judges. I'm impressed by how many judges we have signed up right now, but we would love to see more, and I definitely would love to see more stewards and other people that can come and actually help us on Saturday and Sunday. So if you're available, please look us up at Michigan Brew Cup, michiganbeercup.com. There's a big register link. It'll take you right to the page to do that. I think that's the big news there. The other thing that got brought up in some texts I had this week that I need to get a post on is the sorting night. And so I'm going to put it out here, but I will get a post up. But in case anybody watches this, we're not going to have a big public volunteer heavy sorting night this year. And the reason for that is I think Brian and I really want to learn the process and understand how it works and kind of just figure it out. And so I was texting with Keith Manchester the other night. I know in the past there's been, quite a large number of people show up for sorting night. There's a big pizza party or whatever to go along with it. We're going to try to keep that on the DL this year and hopefully bring that back in future years. I want to learn the process and, pretty much do it myself and figure out, how we can make this as efficient and accurate and easy as possible. So, but I will put a post on Michigan Beer Cup's Facebook page about that in the next day or two.
Awesome. We had an announcement sometime within the last week about updates on prizes too, I think, right?
Yes, and why don't you talk about that? I'm going to look and see how many amazing entries we're up to.
Okay. Every year we've had plaques available for our beer best of show winners and our cider mead best of show winners. Cider mead being combined together, and we're still going to do that this year, I believe. Right? That's still the
Yep.
plan. But we're trying to start to get prizes back into the mix a little bit, and this year is a bit of a maybe a brute force effort with gift cards, but um, on top of the $50 gift cards that come with the gold medal winner for every category, the best of show winner for beer, and the best of show winner for mead and cider are also getting additional gift cards on top of the $50 gift card that they'll already get from having a gold medal beer that went into that best of show. And the value of that best of show gift card is going to be based on the total number of entries that we get into the competition. It was always going to be like $200 or $250 minimum. We've already blown way past that.
Yep.
So essentially, it's going to be the value of how many entries we get when the competition closes, with a maximum value of $500. So what are we at right now?
So we're currently at 316. We are not quite at, or I think just over a week, right? Just over 1 week since entries open.
Yeah, it opened on Monday at noon, I think, last Monday.
Yeah. So we're over a week. We've already sold out a little over 60% of the competition, so it's going really, really well.
With 5 weeks to go?
Yep.
3 weeks?
Well,
4 weeks?
until 19th.
Okay. Yeah, so at least 5
the
weeks.
19th. Yeah, 4 weeks. But in the past few years, it's been 300 or less. So we've already sold 316. So we've already kind of met what has been done in the last couple of years. I'm really excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Really hoping that we can push past and hit that 500 mark. So just to circle back on that, we partnered up with Hopcraft Supply this year, and we are selling category sponsorships for each of the 44 categories for $50 a piece, and that money is immediately being rolled over into a Hopcraft Supply $50 gift card, and then Hopcraft is actually providing $200, two $200 prizes for the best of show. But like Brian said, we're going to augment that and ramp it up for every entry that we've seen or sell above and beyond the 200. So right now they'd be $316 a piece. Just to circle back on, this is the first time I think there have been organized prizes tied to the medals like this. I know in the past they've done pick tables and things like that, and Nikki and Dan and the other organizers did a lot of work working with other breweries and various vendors to try to gather up prizes in the past, but then it kind of fell off during COVID, and it hasn't been that many of those in the last couple of years. And so this was really Brian and I's first year. What can we do to get something back without doing a lot of work? So that's where we partnered up with Hopcraft Supply. This year, hopefully we can expand that to more vendors and other places around Michigan in the coming years. But this was just a quick and easy one to hit. For those of you that are watching, a Hopcraft Supply does do $5 flat rate shipping to anything in Michigan up to how many pounds,
35 pounds.
35 pounds. So
Yep.
they have a good online presence. It's a prize that can be used by anybody in Michigan, regardless of where you're at. So really looking forward to that. And then the medals themselves. So we did put a post out on Michigan Beer Cup's Facebook page with an outline of the medal. And I know somebody saw it and was like, oh, it's boring. It was just the outline of the medal. There's more to that medal, but we are looking at new medals, new design. In fact, shot an email to the medal supply company today to tweak some of the artwork that's going inside of that outline. Hopefully we'll have that design finalized in the next couple of weeks, and we'll actually be able to post the finished product, which I'm really excited about. I think they're really cool.
Awesome.
So
yeah, we'll try to keep people updated on the show as the weeks go on here, as we have shows and stuff. hopefully things will be a little bit more consistent like they have been the last couple of weeks. So we'll let you know. You'll definitely see posts from us.
Yeah.
Probably.
But one more time, if you're listening, if you can steward, if you can come out on the weekend of the 3rd and 4th, even if you think you could judge or are interested in judging, we will pair you with a certified judge. The more the merrier. Rochester Mills Production Facility, June 3rd and 4th, 9 a.m. Please
Awesome.
come.
Yes. We won't. We've already talked about how fun stewarding and judging is and stuff on previous episodes. We don't have to go back into it again today. But
absolutely,
if you want to reach out to us and talk about it to us, one-on-one, hit us up on the page, or if you know us personally,
sure,
catch us at a meeting or send us a message or text or whatever. So
cool. We will feed you.
Yes,
and that's all I think I've got.
We appreciate everyone's time.
All right.
So packaging beer. What is packaging beer, Jason, to you?
To me, it's introducing as much oxygen as I possibly can. From keg to can. No.
If it's not purple, it's not beer.
No, I mean, it's an important part of, especially in the competition circle. It's an important step that many brewers or newer brewers are really focused on. Cleanliness, sanitation, those are the big things that we harp on all the time. I mean, we've done it in a dozen different episodes. And they get to the finished product. It's done fermenting. It is ready to go. And they just kind of, some of them just slam it in a bottle. I've heard various different things, a dip tube off of a tap, just whatever. There's lots of different ways, and there's a lot of areas where beer could go bad in that process. I mean, once you're sealing in that bottle, you're sitting it there for potentially days, weeks, or months. And so, it's an important process. I know new people typically start with a bottling wand and a bucket, and they're doing bottle carbonation bottle carb, and that's totally fine. But there's so many other ways and toys and tools and techniques and things to be aware of to keep your beer fresh and oxygen free as it transitions into its final resting place.
Hey, at the very most generic sense, I guess I would call packaging getting the beer from the fermenter to its final resting place.
Yeah.
Whether that be a keg or a bottle or Tim Wickland's mouth. And Tim says, I wish I could find a way to get it from the fermenter right into my mouth. If you have,
I think you can.
You can. If you have a fermenter capable of holding like 30 psi or something, or even like 17 psi or something, you can probably keg right in your, or I'm sorry, carb right in your fermenter if you can get it someplace cold. I know a few people who do that.
I mean, I don't know why I would ever buy one, but just thinking about it, I was a few weeks ago talking about SS Brewtech's new 10-gallon bright tank they're selling, glycol chilled jacketed bright tank. And Brian's like, why would you ever need that? Well, if I want to serve directly, if I want to be Tim Wickland and go straight from the tank into my mouth.
The shinier your equipment, the better your beer tastes. It's just there's a graph somewhere that shows this, and they're totally on par with each other.
Absolutely.
So I guess without serving your beer right out of the fermenter, the most obvious way to get it to something else is by transferring, right? So you got to transfer it somehow. So let's talk about transferring beer first. And really, I think there are just a couple ways that people transfer beers these days. There's closed transfers, which are usually being pushed with an inert gas like a CO2 or argon or nitrogen or something. Or there's siphoning, using something like an auto siphon,
which is probably what the majority of homebrewers are using. They're using, auto siphons or wine thieves, siphoning to get that out of the brew bucket or fermenter of whatever into their keg. It's kind of the upgrade, I think, to do closed which is what you've started to do this year, right? More of the closed system,
Mm-hmm.
oxygen-free transfers.
And I can talk about that in a minute, but since siphoning is probably more common, let's go into that first. So if you don't own an auto siphon is basically a tube with another tube inside it that forces liquid out of your fermenter or a container at a higher level and creates suction that will cause the liquid to then transfer down into another container at a lower level. So if you were to want to get your beer out of a fermenter into a bucket that has a spigot on it, which you can then use to bottle your beer, or if you wanted to get it out of a fermenter right into a keg, using an auto siphon or really any kind of siphon is really common. There's a couple issues with using siphons, though. Auto siphons in particular, you sort of have to pump. You sort of have to pump this inner tube into perfect. Yeah, thank you for the picture. Into this outer tube to cause the liquid to get forced up the top and out of the siphon. And in doing that, you're creating a lot of oxygen exposure. You're mixing up the liquid a bit. The lid of your container usually has to be off, which is also potentially causing oxygen exposure. The thing you're transferring liquid into potentially has oxygen in it, and you can be purging all of these with CO2. You can have like CO2 lines constantly running gas like in your containers and stuff like that to try to mitigate it, but for the most part there is a lot of potential for oxygen exposure using an auto siphon. That said, it's not always the biggest deal depending on the style. Some styles are going to be a lot more prone to oxygen than others, and some styles even benefit from a little bit of micro oxygen exposure. But perhaps not the greatest in terms of overall quality of beer, but definitely the most convenient.
I mean, it's what like I said, the first your first step into kegging beer or really as a new brewer, this is probably the piece of equipment. I mean, there is one step down from this. If you are brewing in a brew bucket with a spigot, you can go directly from the spigot into a bottling cane into your bottle. I think that's probably the lowest or entry level phase. But this, if you're going in from either a primary to a secondary vessel or from your fermenter into a keg, this is most likely what you're using. Bigger thing, I think, when I was learning how to use an auto siphon or when I was a new brewer, the biggest thing I think to make like a quality step up was purging the receiving vessel. Like I for a long time didn't really think about that, and I was just kind of going right into a keg full of oxygen air. I was letting it splash around. Maybe I didn't have the hose all the way down in the keg, and I was just kind of letting it fall in there and aerate. And that's, like you said, it's fine if you're doing a like a Belgian style or something like that. Not so great if you're doing it in IPA.
Yeah.
Another thing to point out with this, and I can bring it back, just for a new brewer and where I actually got burned on these, is there's a lot of nooks and crannies in here. And so if we go back to sanitation, when you're using one of these cheaper plastic auto siphons, sanitation does come into play. If you get into mixed fermentation, you definitely want to make sure you have one of these for your sour beers, one of these for your regular beers. You can get around this by buying a stainless steel auto siphon with silicone bits and pieces that you can actually put in an oven and bake and basically autoclave. But it's just something to call out. If you're new, you really want to be careful with these. Make sure you clean them. Make sure when you're starting your brew day that you're putting these in your sandy bucket and letting them, kind of soak and get sanitized as early as possible.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't even think about the sanitization like issues that could possibly come with that. So
I know a while back you had your green pepper beer for a while, and I think you were debating on whether or not it was a line problem, if I remember correctly. And I had years early on in my brewing, I had a similar issue with beer gone funky, and I think I tied it to a racking cane that had gotten some gunk in it, or that I like crossed it with a sour or whatever. It's just always stuck in my mind. I was one of the Kickstarters on the first stainless steel racking cane. I can't remember their name. They probably went out of business. I don't think
It's
they
like
survived.
Brew SSS Siphon.
Yeah,
Like that. Yeah.
I was like one of their first Kickstarters, and the reason they impressed me so much was they made that all silicone, that you can completely break down this device and just throw it in the oven and bake it at 500 degrees for an hour and kill everything. And I was really impressed with it. I actually still have that thing. It is great. I don't use it anymore because I don't. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of progressed. Well, I don't do anything with beer at all anymore, to be honest with you.
You will.
But when I do, I've kind of stepped up past racking canes. So
I still use mine occasionally for like sour beer things or for mead things or wine things. It definitely still has its uses, and I do bake mine. You can also boil it if you have a big enough pot that you want to fill with water and boil. There's plenty of ways to sanitize it. So 100% recommend one of those. It will last you probably a lifetime-ish. Again, they have small parts that can break off too, but way more sanitary and worthwhile than the plastic ones. Probably about like 5 or 6 times more expensive, but if you consider the cost of replacing 3 idle siphons, you're paying double still, but for
yeah, I think those plastic ones run for like $15, and I think I got the large stainless steel one early on. I want to say it was like 70. It's worth it, absolutely worth it. Not a huge cost.
And we'll get into oxygen sort of prevention methods while using siphons and stuff like that a little bit later too. And Jason already mentioned CO2 purging, but we'll kind of swing back to that in a minute. So the other thing that I mentioned was close transfers, which is I think sort of the more progressive way that homebrewers are packaging beers these days. It's more on par with the professionals, and of course, everything that home brewers do, we want to emulate the professional brewers, but in this particular case, it's a pretty good practice. So what close transferring is pushing the beer out of your fermenter, usually through a spigot near the bottom, using CO2. The most common way to do this is to fill up a keg with sanitized Star San, just like a 5-gallon thing of Star San, all the way to the top. Purge that entire keg of Star San so that you have nothing left but CO2 in there, because all of the liquid has to be displaced by something, right? And so if you're pushing CO2 into it, that just leaves nothing but CO2 gas in the keg. And then hooking CO2 up to something at the top of your fermenter, usually, because that's where you want to push your beer from the top down through the bottom, and then running that beer into the liquid outpost of your keg, so your keg fills from the bottom up, and then having something that's also letting the gas that's inside the keg be displaced or out of the keg while it's being displaced by the beer. Some people hook up like a faucet to the gas outpost and run that faucet out into like the bucket of Star San that you just purged. Some people just pull the PRV up in the middle of the keg lid and just let gas go out that way. There's pretty much always going to be positive pressure in the keg that's like exiting, so you're not really getting air back in probably unless you stop the transfer at some point. So you just need to have some way to let that gas get out, otherwise your transfer is going to stop, because there's equal pressure essentially at that point in time inside the keg as there is inside your fermenter trying to push beer into the keg.
Yeah, there's lots of videos out there on YouTube that you can go to, other creators in this space. I actually feel like, did Trouble Brewing do something like this?
Maybe.
I feel
That's
like
a good idea.
I could be wrong. But I mean, they typically they make things. They do make caps for carboys that will allow you to put like a ball lock or pin, or I should say, a transfer knob on, and then have it go out. They also, but typically this is not done with a brewing bucket. Like you do need some other type of equipment. I think I see it more in like a Firmzilla or a conical. What are you using for your fermentation vessel when you're doing this?
I have a SS Brewtech brew bucket, which is not rated for pressure. However, it can hold about 1 psi without the lid popping off or anything, which is all that you need in order to do a closed transfer.
Right. You're not putting this thing under pressure. You're just moving liquid.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess I'm actually Googling, and I do see people. I don't want to throw shit up on the screen that I don't have permission to, but I do see people actually doing it out of a plastic bucket. I mean, so it's possible. But I think it's easier if you can do it out of something that has some of the fittings for it. Definitely a Firmzilla would make this super simple since they're meant to be under pressure.
Ron says corny keg. Yeah.
Yep. If you ferment in a corny keg, yeah, absolutely.
The only thing that I've done it out of a Speedle before too. Those hold 1-2 psi just fine. The only thing I would be really skeptical about is doing it out of glass. So I have seen people pressurize glass containers like glass carboys and push beer out through specialized caps. That freaks me out.
I was going to say, because that's funny that you say that, because that's actually like, I'm looking at products made for glass carboys to do closed transfer. I would say I would not be as, I like that you have the caution that freaks you out. I would say the same thing. Putting 1 pound of pressure on glass is not going to blow that carboy up. But it would definitely, this is not something you're going to do and walk away and come back and have a glass hand grenade sitting there.
True.
With 100 pounds of pressure. But they actually do make, plastic caps that have, fittings for your gas lines that kind of, condom over the mouth of a carboy.
Ugh. Freaks me out. I don't know, man.
Actually,
I know it's not enough to like explode a carboy all over, but dang, like
yeah, I'm gonna add this. This is just some shop. So they have these devices, of course, glass and plastic carboys. That's what they're made for. You can see that you've got your liquid out, going down to the bottom of the carboy, your gas in kind of coming into the top. It's going to be pushing that liquid through this line into your liquid in. You can see that's a black connector for the liquid, technically liquid outline on a keg. So yeah, they're out there. Check them out. What are the benefits of that? So that you are getting a true, if done properly, right, and all the vessels are purged, like you said, you are getting a true no oxygen exposure transfer of beer.
Or at least as damn close as you can get it on like a homebrew scale. Yeah.
Right.
I have a New England IPA sitting downstairs right now that tastes as fresh as it did 2 weeks ago. And that's not to say that beer transferred any other way is going to go bad after 2 weeks, but it certainly has the potential to. And the way that I brew, and I think I've talked about this before on the show, is that I brew in a way that limits the possibility of things getting fucked up as much as possible. I play the odds, right? So everything I do when I make a beer is putting the odds in my favor more and more that the beer that I'm going to drink at the very end is going to be amazing, or at least, passable, as passable as I can get it. And doing a closed transfer is certainly probably one of the best ways of doing that, because I mean, let's be real. Like, how long is a brew day? Like 4 to 5 hours probably. And then how long is a fermentation? Like 1 to 2 weeks probably, depending on the style. And how much are the ingredients? 30 to $50 probably. And between all your time and effort and money, to have a beer, get fucked up in 30 minutes, and not be really all that great, 3-4 weeks down the line when you still have like half of it left, it's not very fun.
Yeah.
It's like, that kind of sucks. And so there's certainly a little bit of an investment to do it. You usually have to have another CO2 tank off to the side in order to, push gas. You need to have a fermenter that's capable of it. And a little bit of, tubing and elbow grease to kind of put together something. But
and it does add a little bit of time to your transfer day, right? So it takes,
it does, yeah,
maybe a half hour or whatever. But
Mhm.
I think the big thing for me, I mean, I know you're looking at doing it to make the best possible beer, but I also look at it as it's a consistency step.
Yeah, sure.
If you are trying to replicate the best product that you can, if you're into competitions, or you just, you want to replicate Bell's Oberon, and you want it to be the same every time you brew it, regardless on how you feel that year and if it makes taste beer different. But it's just a consistency thing. It takes the randomization of how did I splash this beer around, or how much oxygen did it get exposed to out of the equation.
Mhm. So I think we nailed that. I will post videos, or at least a video tomorrow. I'll find one on doing a close transfer, since that's something we have. One of these days we will, maybe post our own content that's not a live stream, but we have to be,
no, let's do it. Next time you've got to do it, I'll come over. I'll film you doing a closed transfer, and we'll get it up there. Let's do it.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
I'm actually looking, if I can find one from Matt, from Trouble Brewing, I'll put it in the comments.
Beautiful, perfect. So let's get back to like bottling again, because I know that there's still a lot of people out there that that do bottling, and I want to talk about like oxygen reduction techniques when maybe not even necessarily bottle carving, but just like just putting stuff into bottles in general. So the typical way, this is how I first started brewing, at least when I first started brewing, when I thought my beer was ready, after not taking a hydrometer reading and just kind of being like, oh, the airlock stops bubbling, I'm sure it's fine. Don't do that. Take a gravity reading, make sure it's stable. but I would get my bucket ready that had a spigot on it, and I would transfer the beer from my plastic bucket fermenter into my plastic bucket bottling bucket, and I would measure out an amount of table sugar by weight, and mix that into the beer in the bottling bucket and stir it around, stick a bottling wand onto the spigot with the lid off, of the bottling bucket the entire time, and bottle my beers one by one over the course of, an hour. And I think that's how everybody starts, to be completely honest. And I don't think that's bad. That is totally, it's a great way to get your beer going, right? To be completely honest, there will be a level of oxygen scrubbing that happens in the bottle from the yeast as that as oxygen is consumed by the yeast during like the little mini fermentation that happens in the bottle to create that carbonation. However, that's not to say that all of it is going to be consumed. And so there's a few mitigation methods that home bottle conditioner people can use to limit that exposure a little bit. And really, I just want to touch on one big one because it's a little bit new. And Brewlosophy covered it a little ways back. There's been a couple of homebrew talk pages on it and a few Reddit posts on it. But it's adding either sodium or potassium metabisulfite to the beer as it's being packaged. So sodium metabisulfite or potassium metabisulfite, I'd recommend potassium as it's more of a neutral flavor. Sodium has a bit of a salt flavor, but it's so little, it probably isn't going to matter. Use whatever you have. What it does is it binds to and removes oxygen from the liquid, thereby essentially killing off yeast because it doesn't have oxygen to survive. It's not going to halt a fermentation, but it's one of the two things that you should use if you ever want to stop a re-fermentation from happening. If you were to ever add more like sugar or anything into the beer, the issue becomes a little bit is that metabisulfite, because it kills yeast, you need yeast in order to bottle condition, right?
Yep.
So you're sort of playing this game of am I gonna scrub enough oxygen or am I gonna like kill all the yeast?
So you're basically hoping that you have enough sugar in there to get the yeast to kick off to do the carbonation before the metabisulfite kills them.
Scrubs like too much oxygen, kind of. Generally, I've seen this only really being super recommended for those that keg beer.
Yeah.
It's still, I think it's a really, really great thing to do for kegging beer. It's so little metabisulfite that it's probably something we should all be doing. I have not experimented with it enough to say whether or not it does anything. But again, I like to play the odds. So maybe it's something that I really need to start doing. The hard part is that when you're doing a close transfer, you want to not open that keg back up as much as possible. So adding things back in, like even clarifying agents, sometimes is like, okay, like make it quick.
Yeah.
But I don't 100% know the viability of bottle conditioning. I don't think it's enough to kill all the yeast. It's certainly,
I think that would definitely be though like a really advanced. You gotta know what you're doing. If you're getting into brewing, if you're a new home brewer and you got a brew bucket kit with a bottling wand, go to town and you're gonna have a great time making some awesome beer. It's if you're building out your home brewery and you're really starting to play with other toys and processes, I think that might be cool. But if you're just talking about the bottling wand method, which I still remember to this day, like the very first beer I did, I literally like sat in my kitchen floor and I had the bucket up on the counter and I got all the bottles and I'm literally sitting in the floor after like trying to be all super sanitary, and then I'm like, now I'm just sitting on the floor and my dog's walking by and I'm like got all these open bottles and I'm doing this thing with the wand and, you know. So I think moving up to or moving away from bottle conditioning into kegging and force carboning was the first big step I took as like improving my homebrew. Not saying that you can't do good bottle conditioned beer. You know, and there are
some Belgian styles like really, really benefit from it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it was really just a timing thing. Like, you know, like you went through it earlier, you know, okay, you got a 5-hour brew day, you got 1 to 2 weeks of fermentation, you know, and then you got a bottling day or whatever. I don't want to wait another 7, 10, 14, you know, days until I'm cracking that bottle. I remember my first, my first batch of beer, I feel like every few days I was going down there and cracking one to see if it was ready yet, and it wasn't, and then I was just drinking uncarbonated beer because I didn't want it to go to waste. Where I can throw all of the stuff in a keg, and have it ready. I mean, technically in hours if you really want to work it, but more realistically in a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I know we still have more to talk about, but I kind of want to interrupt this discussion and sort of reiterate how much oxygen can really deteriorate a beer. I judged the Siciliano's homebrew competition this last weekend with a ton of other people. I think we had at least 36 judges there, and so many judges. We only had to do like one flight each. It was great, like amazing volunteers show up. At least from our club, we had like 5 others besides me there. Brandon, Tim, Sean, Jeff Harms, Doug Voden. Who am I missing? And Ron was there stewarding with Sean. I feel like I'm missing at least one other from our club, but
Sure.
yeah, Brian. Jeez, sorry, Brian. Yeah, it's the name thing. Like I already said my name, right? He's gonna listen to the show later. He listens to all of our shows. I think he's playing catch up right now. He's gonna hear this in his car on the way to work and be like, "Fucking Brian." But I think that we had this discussion afterwards that there were so many beers that just had these oxygen exposure characters. This cardboardy or sherry sort of like flavor is how it's usually described. I think that the best way to figure out how you taste it as an individual, because Shayna, I was talking to her about this last night. She doesn't taste cardboard or sherry necessarily, but she understands the flavor because we've shared so many beers this past couple weeks that have had this flavor. I'm actually drinking a Centennial IPA right now that was canned on Christmas Eve, and it's just it's falling off, and it very much has those characteristics. And as homebrewers, especially if you're entering competitions, and I know we always get back to competitions and stuff, but I think that competitions can be like a good standard to hold your beer at. Like, if your beer is 3 months old and still doing well at competitions, you probably did a good job packaging. Or, if you're drinking it yourself 1 month later and it's just not the same beer anymore, then maybe you didn't do so great a job packaging. Like it can be, one of those things. But we had so many beers this weekend that just had lower scores than they should have just because of packaging issues or oxygen exposure issues. Based on what I could taste, you can't make any assumptions. It very well could be that some of the beers that we tasted were 2 years old. You never really know, but it seems to be really, really common. And I swear, in my particular table, I don't think we had a single beer that had any like off flavors or anything. The recipes were great. They were well fermented. They just didn't have that crisp, clean, sort of like right out of the keg.
Yep.
Or right out of the fermenter carved like sort of taste that you really want from like the most delicious beers that you taste.
So no, I absolutely get that, and the oxygenation or oxygen exposure during the bottling process, especially bottle conditioned beers, is something that brewers and home brewers have to deal with. And you're right, it's not just a competition thing. It could just be you want to make the best beer. I know we talk comp because that's what we, that's what we do. That's what we're focused on. That's what drives us. But it could just be, you don't enter any comps at all. You just want to drink the best, freshest possible beer. So outside of bottle conditioning, I don't know if there's any more that we need to go into in that method. of brew bucket bottle filling. I think the next step, the easiest step for me as a home brewer, and what you can get into for, for what, like $100, is kegging. And
Yep.
and that is going to give you the opportunity to start doing, more of these closed fermentation. I'm sorry, closed transfers, which backtracking a little bit, Trouble Brewing does have a video called "Cheapest and Easiest Way for Low/No Oxygen Transfer into Kegs."
Oh, cool.
So we can post that link to Matt's video. You can go check that out. But I really think that is my own beer for competition, like buying that first keg, buying that small can of, tank of CO2, and forced carboning was probably the biggest step in improving my beer quality.
What was that little device that you used to use to carbonate?
Oh my
Blickman
God.
sold?
So Blickman sold this device. I don't know if they do anymore, but for a few years ago, it was called the Quick Carb.
Oh yeah.
And it was basically you put your beer into a keg, and this was a pump that like hooked on. It created a closed loop with your keg, and so it was basically pulling beer out of your keg, running it through a chamber with a CO2 stone under pressure, and pushing it back into your keg, and you would just let it circulate while being injected with CO2. And you wanted to transfer your beer into the keg as carefully as you could, and purge the hell out of the keg, and then you basically hook this device up, and it caused this loop with forced CO2. I think they advertised that it could force carbonate a beer in under an hour to drinking whatever 2.4 vols, so drinking volume of CO2. They recommended, the colder the better, and if you could actually keep the beer cold while you ran it through this thing, it was even better. I was a big fan of it. I was one of the first buyers of it. I actually remember standing at a get together. I think it was an AHA get together that John Blickman was at, with a table with the quick carb. And I stood there for like an hour and told everybody how amazing this thing was. The one that I bought quickly failed because the pump on it wasn't really meant to be taken apart, and it was a difficult thing to clean. And it got gummed up and it failed. And so I let John and Blickman know, and they immediately sent out a new pump, no questions asked. Great customer service. But then unfortunately that one failed, and I let them know again. And I got another brand new one, right away. But I don't feel like they were changing, and it was failing in the same way every time. And when the third one failed, after like 2 uses, I just stopped.
Wow.
I stopped using it. I would hope, I haven't checked in a while. I'm not trying to knock Blickman at all. In fact, I hope someday to have John on the show. I like him a lot, and his equipment is generally good equipment. I just think that particular device had some flaws that I hope they work through. I don't know. But I also don't think it's necessary. Like, now that I know more, I was enamored by it in the beginning. Now that I know that, to be honest with you, if you just take a keg and throw 30 pounds of gas on it and shake it every 10 minutes, you can accomplish the same thing in an hour and a half or 2 hours. Like, you don't need this device. And to be honest with you, it was just really, it was cool, but it got to be a pain in the ass to hook up and prime it and to get it going, and then and kind of like you were saying, worried about oxygen. I just always wondered, like, if there was just the littlest bit of oxygen in there, and I'm just recirculating it. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. if you want to force carb a keg of beer, put a liquid connector on your gas line. Set your gas pressure to 30 pounds psi. Put it on your liquid post and
Have at it.
give it a good shake every 10 to 15 minutes as you walk by. I've literally done that dozens of times. Like usually there's a big push right before Homebrew Fest, which is in, it's actually 4 months, just a little under 4 months from today. There's usually a big push from me in years past where like the week before Homebrew Fest, I'm like brewing like 6 fucking beers just to try to fill out kegs and get things going. And it always, I actually think, it wasn't last year, the year before, you and I were like literally carbing a beer as we're driving down the road. Like I've got beers in the bed of my truck hooked up to fucking 30, 40 pounds of CO2 on my way to Detroit. So
I remember that. Yep. It didn't really do anything. I don't think it worked all that well. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But kind of got off topic. Not really. I think limiting oxygen is really important, but I just kind of wanted to give some sort of feedback from my weekend exposure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think if you're gonna make, we probably should have talked about this and organized the show a little bit differently. I think if you're bottling from a bucket and you want to make your game, you want to up your game, get a keg. If you've been in kegs for a while and you want to up your game, closed fermentation, or I'm sorry, closed transfer is the way to go. That's like the next step. If you're in a bucket and you're using a bottling wand and bottling condition, you can get it on and go right to it. But I think the first step is get a keg, force carbonation. You're going to rack into that keg or transfer into that keg one time. You're going to purge it. Hopefully you've purged it before you put the beer in it, just to be safe. And we'll not talk about gas mixture and all that other stupid shit and whether or not purging does anything. It does. It's magic. But just by having that keg and being able to carbonate in that keg to the level of carbonation that you want, in Brian's case, like 3.2 vols. It's gonna up your game, and then from there you can start looking at getting the cool little toys, like the Blickman beer gun, to fill bottles of beer with carbonated beer, or a tap cooler.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next. Yep.
Yeah, I figured that. I mean, so I feel like though that I do have to give a little bit of love back to Blickman, even though because I just knocked on the quick carb. I don't use the beer gun anymore, but the Blickman beer gun is the superior.
It was revolutionary at its time, and it's still a great piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
So let's talk about those. The beer gun, tap cooler. We can even talk about growler fillers. So for those that keg, that's not always the end step of getting a beer to where it needs to be. Sometimes, even though you're kegging, you want to get it into a bottle still for things like competitions. So the risk of oxygen exposure still isn't over yet, even if you keg and want to enter competitions. The easiest way, and the way that I started filling bottles for competitions, was with a growler filler. And it's basically like a piece of metal that goes into your faucet with a like foot long piece of tubing that comes out of it that you stick into a bottle, and you just run beer through it into your bottle until it's kind of full, and then stop, pull out the piece of tubing and cap the bottle. Lori actually mentioned earlier, cap on foam. And that's something that we probably need to talk about. Whoops. Because she's absolutely correct. No matter how you're bottling, capping on foam is going to help sort of force out air that's still in the bottle, or oxygen that's in the bottle, and create a bit of a layer of CO2 in between the cap and your beer that will, at the very least, limit the amount of oxygen that's going to be in that bottle. There's it's basically what professional breweries do. They try to fill stuff just about up to the top, and before putting the cap, or what do you call a can lid? Is it just a can lid?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure. Okay.
But I mean, they're doing the same thing. Like, I mean, I remember the first, professional brewery I went into, and I got to see how they did it. They were using Blickman beer guns. And so one of the things, I don't know if you mentioned, like when you're using these devices, they have a way, like the beer gun has a button, you hook it up to CO2, the beer to allow you to purge the bottle from, shoot it and fill it full of CO2 as much as you can. If you're using the tap cooler, kind of same thing. Tap cooler is a better process because you actually can seal the bottle and purge it with CO2. But then, yeah, you're evacuating all of the oxygen that you can. And actually, I just want to call out, because Lori just commented again. Lori, I see your husband registered to judge, but I don't see you. So
he was at Siciliano's.
So Lori would love to see you on the 3rd and 4th. Cheers. But you're gonna empty out the oxygen, or get rid of as much oxygen as you can, and you start filling that bottle from the bottom, which is going to create that layer that's going to push the rest of that gas, oxygen, CO2 mixture out. And then when you displace, you pull out that device, the liquid, Stuart, I'll take Stuart, absolutely. But the liquid displaced by the device itself, then will give you kind of that headroom. But when you're doing that, there's foam, and that foam is then continuing to push out the gas, and you should get a lid on it as quickly as you can, because then you have eliminated all of that vacant, empty space.
Tap cooler, like you mentioned, is a little bit different. Again, Lori had mentioned, she says, we have a counter pressure filler that we built, and has been a big change from the beer gun. This is essentially what a tap cooler is. It only works for most forward sealing faucets, but the way that it works is you stick this sort of cross-shaped piece of equipment into your tap.
Let me find one.
Yeah. That helps for the people watching live, I guess. You stick CO2 up to the side. You stick your bottle on the bottom. First, you purge it with like 2 or 3 seconds worth of CO2, and you create a seal at the top while still filling with CO2 that starts to pressurize the bottle. And then there's an adjustable vent on the side, so you can choose exactly like how much pressure you want in the bottle as you fill. Because the bottle is pressurized, when you start to fill the bottle with beer after that, it fills a little slower, but generally without any foam, and it keeps the CO2 level exactly, for the most part, where you had it inside the keg. Yeah, there's pictures on the screen right now of what they look like, but
yeah. So basically, you get one side, the gas comes in, and then this thing fits into the top of the device, fits into your faucet. And so you've got a line for your gas to come in to then purge the bottle. That silicone nipple at the top kind of keeps pressed up against the top of, or the lip of your bottle to create that seal. And then there's a pressure valve on the other side that lets the gas go out. So it actually fills under pressure. It fills slower, but it is, it's got to hit a certain amount of pressure before it can hit that relief valve to let the other gas and escape. And so I fucking love them. Like, I think we've talked about this before. Like, my favorite beer gadget in the last 10 years that I've been brewing or whatever is the tilt by far, but this is like number 2.
I think we talked about these in our like gadget shows or something, whatever that show was. Yeah. Wonderful piece of equipment. It changed the way that I bottle my sour beer, for sure. If you keg like beer, like that needs to be really, really carbonated, say like some Belgians, like saisons, or like some sour beers. When I used to use a growler filler, because it was so carbonated, it would essentially come out as foam, like from my faucet through the growler filler. And if I was bottling a beer for a competition, I would waste 12 ounces of beer as foam just to get 12 ounces of beer in the bottle, probably. It was bad. And it would never be the same carbonation level as what it was coming out of the keg. Bottling with a counter pressure filler, like a tap cooler, um, you pop the cap off of one of these bottles, and it's just like,
Yep.
and you pour it, and it's sparkling and delicious. Oh, cider too, like sparkling cider, or even like sparkling hydromels. I mean, just game changer for those.
And it doesn't have to be these brands. I know I like the Blickman beer gun. I like the tap cooler counter feller. And I know Brian does too. There are other brands. There are DIY devices. I know as a club, we actually have a DIY
Oh my gosh, I forgot
pressure
about that.
filler
Yeah.
that somebody built. I mean, so there's ways to get around it. Of course, the beer gun and the tap cooler both run around the same amount of money. I think they're close to $100 or $80, depending on the.
I think the beer gun was $200 last I checked, wasn't it? I thought so.
What's funny is, I want to say I spent $100 for my first one. But in my competition days, I actually won 2 more, and I've traded and sold them. I don't.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. They're $110.
I think the $110 version actually comes with like extra tubing and some shit.
Yeah, I was overblowing it. My bad.
And the tap cooler, I think, is like, I've got it up on my screen. I think it's like $79. Actually, this one I'm looking at a European site, it's 89 euros. So whatever, $100. And these 2 devices are like seriously, beer to the next level. Beer gun if you're going right off the keg, tap cooler if you've got a Keezer. With some forward sealing faucets, you do have to check on that. I know Brian and I were talking to one of our members, Casey, this last meeting. Casey needs to bottle some beer. And I was talking to him, I'm like, dude, I'll bring over my tap cooler and help you bottle right off the tap. And I'm like, but I think we were drinking. I couldn't quite figure out if we couldn't quite figure out if he had a forward sealing faucet. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just bring a faucet too. Like we'll bring the faucet, we'll bring the tap cooler, we'll come over, we'll drink some beers, and we'll bottle this shit up.
Let me pull up my.
And sorry for putting you on the spot, Lori, about stewarding. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah,
sorry at all.
I just opened a Boss Tweed that
Danny's,
I think, again, it's a little older. And
Danny says tap cooler has an adapter to go right off the keg. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, it's on my screen now too. God, if I'd pay attention. That's right.
I don't use it typically because it's just easier for me to stick it right into a faucet, but they have all sorts of adapters. They have adapters where they have the can adapters, which personally I've heard aren't amazing. I've heard if you want to do cans, something like a dual filler is probably where you want to go. But they have adapters where you can stick long bits of tubing into your faucet, so you don't have to hold your bottle up against your faucet. You can hold a filler down against your bottle, which helps for keeping your hands a little warm, because beer is cold and coming right out of the keg, and it helps those arm muscles not be as tired.
That would be this device for another $18.
Yeah, if you have Intertap. I want Intertap faucets. They have so many cool adapters. Yeah.
Not trying to advertise Northern Brewer, just showing off what they have. But no, yeah, I think that's I love my tap cooler. And another point you mentioned earlier was sour beer. If you are bottling sour beers with this, I think it is a safe play to get two and have a sour one.
You
and a
can
not sour
boil
one.
these though.
But I was going to say, I know they're fully silicone, or all the fittings are silicone and stainless steel, so you can boil. I actually think you can bake them. I mean, you can sanitize them.
I do have two as well.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. I have two.
I'm that kind of person. So
Safety's sake. You mentioned canning. I can't talk shit about canning. I have never canned.
I know we should have got like a Neville, or I think Cook cans too, doesn't he? Maybe.
I would like to. If I ever build this house that I want to build, and I'll probably get a canner. Hold on. It says next level close transfer into a keg with priming. Sure, we're clicking at the same time.
Sorry.
Into cans, bottles, condition. Oh yeah, we did skip over that. We went from you can close transfer into keg, and you can prime or put priming sugar in the keg, and you can condition. You can condition the keg or the can. I think that's a style. Some styles would lend to that better than others. I think some styles probably would be better forced carb. Like in my opinion, I guess a IPA, I'd rather just have it as fresh and fast as I can get it. So forced carb it and drink it.
I'm also really picky about my carbonation. Sometimes I will carb a beer, and it's where I, maybe an IPA where I've carved all my other IPAs before, but something about this particular one feels like it needs just like a little bit more or something. Not that you can't still add a little bit more CO2 into a keg if you don't bottle it right away. But like if you're doing the priming sugar right in the keg, and that, yeah, exactly. Brian Carbonation Horse Stevens. The only thing about bottling right away is that you can't control that carbonation. And so you sort of need to, like, I think you're exactly right. I think it's style by style. So something like a Saison, I probably would have no problem, like just bottling those into like Belgian bottles and cork and caging them and just letting that stuff go to town. But like a American lager or something, like, I don't know.
It depends too on how detailed you want to get. Like if you're really calculating the amount of sugar you need, and maybe you're doing a small repitch of yeast to make sure that you have the viability there to do it, you can probably dial it in. But I would still lean towards style. I would say, I want that IPA as fast as I can, or I want that American lager to be, as bright and crisp, and I don't want to fuck with it. It's timing.
Yeah. Danny chimed back in again. This is above 3 vols is when he does that. So yeah, I would agree with that. I'm totally for that. Like, yep. It becomes a little bit less of a thing when you get that carbonated. Yeah. Matt's back. Matt Jaggers. What's up, Matt? How's it going, man? Well, he says, okay, I'm here. You're gonna have to start all over.
Good deal. Let's go back to the beginning.
All right. I still got plenty of beer, so we're only an hour in. I got another 3 hours in me tonight. So no. Matt judged his first. No, did he judge his first? He judged Lunar Rendezvous down in Texas this last weekend, I think. And
congrats.
I think he had a little bit of a similar experience this weekend. Just a lot of beers that probably could have used a little bit more of like TLC or something. I think he had an IPA table too, which is especially sensitive to oxygen. So Matt, it'd be interesting to hear you chime back in on if you felt like you judged any beers this weekend that had like a particularly large amount of like oxygen exposure or anything like that, if you felt like. But yeah, I really think that we're sort of coming down to the wire on all the things that exist regarding bottling and kegging. But we did say this was a packaging show.
Yep.
And there's one more sort of packaging we can talk about. And again, this goes back to competitions and stuff a little bit.
Well, hold on. Let's call it out. So canning, we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Yes,
We're not going to talk
100%.
about it.
Yeah.
Canning has a whole nother layer of complexity, I'm sure. They're cool as hell. But I'm sure you can find some other podcasts that'll talk about canning. So yeah, competition. I hate this. So this is, if we're going to talk about shipping beers,
We are going to talk about shipping beers.
so I have had like nothing but nightmares with shipping beers, and Brian is just like, oh, I just drop it in a box and fucking set it on my porch and it's gone and boom, it's done. I've had beers like stopped at the fucking the distribution center and then returned to me via mail. They couldn't even bring them back to my home. I've been kicked out of UPS stores. I've had my fucking box opened. I hate shipping beers to the point that I try to mule. And in fact, in 2 weeks, Brian and I are driving all over the goddamn state for Beer Cup, which I've done for 3 years because I, again, hate shipping. So, yeah, Brian and I have totally different views on shipping. So you can tell him about all of the rainbows and sparkles of bottle shippers and the magic.
Shana, we'll talk about me driving around with Jason after the show. I don't think it's on the calendar yet, but
Oh yeah, that should get put on the calendar.
uh,
Seriously.
so multiple components of shipping, and this can be really, really quick because I feel like everybody and their mom has talked about shipping like before. It's whatever. I feel like this kind of sucks, but like I feel like the more you pay for convenience when it comes to shipping, the less stress it is in a way. So it's sort of a give and take there. There's two ways to go about shipping. There's sort of the DIY, and then there's the prepackaged, quote unquote, or like the brand name shipping. Shanna says, I was going to ask about that. Well, I got you.
It's part of the Beer Cup.
It's fine. So DIY is the way that I first started shipping beers when I first started homebrewing. And by DIY, I mean that you are taking your bottle and you are attaching your label with a rubber band, but then probably wrapping it in bubble wrap, putting it in like its own individual plastic bag, putting it in a padded box full of like crunched up newspaper, or please don't use packing peanuts.
Yeah.
If you ship your beer with packing peanuts to like a competition site and they open it up and that shit gets all over the place, like they will consider, it's not going to happen, but they will be like, oh, I want to disqualify this beer. Like, fuck these people. Don't use packing peanuts, but crumpled up pieces of paper or like, I don't know. There's all sorts of like.
No, I used to individually Ziploc and individually individually bubble wrap and individually Ziploc each and every one of my beers. And I knew doing that was annoying. There was somebody at the other end of the line that had to open and unwrap and then throw away this shit. And it probably annoyed the shit out of them.
The way I see, I think DIY is fine, but it's also a lot of time. Yeah, thank you. I'll show you what I just caught from Shane in a second here, but it's very time consuming, in my opinion, to have to put together all of the materials and wrap all of the beers and to have that be unpacked again, all on the other side, only for it to not be reused.
Yep.
On the other spectrum, I guess, of shipping, there's the pre-bought stuff. So a spirited shipper or whale pods, or like there's some Amazon solutions. You're paying more for these, but they're not one-time use. I want to really, really emphasize this. If you volunteer for homebrew competitions,
you get to take them.
You get to take the stuff that people shipped beer with home to reuse. And so the more of this stuff that's out there and the more that you volunteer your time, honestly,
Nice.
maybe the less time and stress and money that you'll have to spend on these packing materials later on, because all of this stuff starts to make the rounds. But what Shayna just handed me was a spirited shipper packer. So uh, you can kind of see it a little bit in my video here. This is a 2-bottle packer that goes inside a box. The bottles go inside here. This is a 2-bottle. These pieces of cardboard here at the bottom fold in to stop the bottles from completely hitting the bottom of the packaging. There's tabs up on top here that fold in that keep the neck of the bottle above where this piece of cardboard is. And then these top pieces fold down and keep the bottle completely inside this piece of cardboard. And the box that these ship with literally comes up to right here on the top of the piece of cardboard.
Like it's meant for that. It's the size of that. So there's no rattling around.
So, it's not something that you go and you unpack and you recycle. Typically, when there are groups of people that unpack these boxes, these shipping materials go out to members of the homebrew club or organizers or somebody. They go out and get reused. So you yourself are paying a little bit, but you can recoup that cost by going and volunteering a little bit too. And the more of that stuff that's out there, I feel like the more will come back to the competitions you volunteer to. But for me, I've never had a single breakage or issue or rejection or anything shipping with like this kind of material. And it's really stress free in that I don't need to go find bubble wrap or test the boxes at all, or really even think about it. I mean, I just build the material real quick and send it on its way.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I feel like spirited shippers are the way to go now. Like I said, I've done a lot of the other thing, and I've had breaks, and I've had problems, and I've had issues, and everybody I've heard of with spirited shippers and things like that, or whale pods or whatever, they don't. So I would look into those versus the DIY stuff. But on that, when you do this, do not send it through the USPS. This is for FedEx and UPS only. It is illegal to ship to the US or alcohol through the USPS, unless you want to Google on your own time the USPS Shipping Equity Act, and then write your congressman and try to get them to change the stupid law that says it's illegal to ship through the post office.
I do like Lori's idea though of using packing peanuts in a sealed trash bag, perhaps. That feels a little environmentally like whatever, but it'll 100% work, especially if those packing peanuts are like the ones that are like made out of sugar and they just like melt in your sink or whatever. Like those are fine. Like we get those from like Chewy or whatever.
But yeah, use one of those devices, and if you have to ship, try to think of the downstream person that has to open that package. Which, by the way, this is the first year that the Michigan Beer Cup is officially accepting shipped entries. You can ship your beer to the Bell's General Store. Bell's has graciously agreed to accept entries for us. I'm stumbling because I'm trying to find the fucking address and I can't. But anyway, check it out. Bell's General Store, 355 East Kalamazoo Avenue, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49007. It's on our website. So you can actually ship beer to the Bell's General Store this year.
They're only accepting the like last couple weeks before the competition ends. So if you're entering the Michigan Beer Cup and you're from Michigan and shipping over there, make sure you look at the dates and times and stuff. This is interesting. Laura says we
I have seen that
we
once
saw
too.
a guy use spray foam into a trash bag to foam around the bottles.
Yeah.
She said we tried that, but it has to be professional spray foam, not the stuff from Home Depot.
Well,
But that's cool.
there's also there are packs. There's shipping material. There's bags that you can buy that have a little foam capsule inside that you break, and then it fills the bag. So basically, we use them in IT.
Hmm.
And so you buy this bag. You buy it from like UPS. You put it in you pack your box and you put this bag in there and you snap the capsule and you put it in there and you close your bag up, and it basically there's expanding foam inside this bag that then fills whatever void it can and then hardens. Those are really cool. I think they're expensive, but probably more expensive than just buying a spirited chipper. But it's cool. It's cool as fuck.
I've heard lots of people have success with these beer shippers that are on Amazon. They, for the life of me, I can't find what they're called now. They sort of just look like the material that like egg cartons are made out of, except they can hold like it's either 2 or 4 bottles like on a layer. And there's particular boxes that people have found that fit these that ship really nicely. So that's also a possibility. Spirited Shipper is on Amazon too. Their prices and shipping prices are a little bit different on Amazon than they are on their actual website. But if you have like Amazon gift cards, that's potentially a good way of spending them.
So for beer bottles, Amazon has these.
That's what I was looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, they form around it. They're kind of expensive. I will say, like, there's other things on Amazon. They have these plastic bags. I've gotten bottles in that before. For wine bottles, they may even have a version of this styrofoam one for beer. But again, you're not getting these back, folks. So $25 for one box, a little steep.
Mm-hmm. Our club has organized a group buy for spirited shippers before to help cut the cost of shipping. So that's always an option. Or whale pods. If you are a master homebrewer program member, I believe a paid member only, I'm not positive, but they also have a discount code for whale pods. I want to say it's 10% off, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you're in Michigan, whale pods are located in Tim, are you still watching? They're in Michigan somewhere. And I think that Tim emailed them at one point in time and asked if he could come pick them up. And they would organize like a pickup time to save on shipping costs too. So depending on where you live, that could be a really good option to save on shipping, because like really the only reason that a lot of these shipping containers cost so much is because the shipping is so much to get them there.
They're in Okemos.
Okemos, that's what it is. Yeah.
Okemos, Michigan. So we're by Lansing. Yeah, interesting. And they do talking about whale pods. For those of you that do can, whale pods actually sells can shippers too.
Ta-da!
All right.
Well, that's all I had for packaging. Oh no, that's not all I had for packaging. One more thing for packaging. A pro tip. This one comes from Tim Wicklin. But the original pro tip is to prepay and print your label to drop off. I like using UPS usually, as they tend to be a little bit cheaper, at least where I live. But there's a lot of services out there that pre-buy or something. They pre-buy like labels or services or fees or something, like Pirate Ship or Sticker Mule has a new service that they offer. But I personally use Pirate Ship. You can go out to pirateship.com, create a label for your entry. It's cheaper than it would be if you used ups.com, and they don't ask what you're shipping. So you can go and bring your label in with a sealed box. drop it off with your label. They will ask you if you need a receipt. You tell them yes or no, and then you're out of there. It's a 2-minute ordeal, and it's much much cheaper and nicer than if you were to bring a box in and pay for it on the spot. You don't have to tell them you're shipping yeast samples or candles or snow globes or whatever other BS homebrewers have come up with over the years. I've I've been doing this literally since the first day that I started shipping beers, and I've yet to ever have anyone from a shipping company ask me what I am sending, and it's been like 6 years. So,
I have had nothing but problems.
and Jason has had the opposite experience.
And I've
Is
even
it story
like,
time? I think it's Jason's story
yeah,
time.
so like the most exciting one that I had was, um, there was actually a post on the AHA where they're like, DHL is okay with homebrew shipment. Like it, it, what's his name? John Moorhead,
Mhm.
put a post out there. Like, it's okay on DHL. You can be honest with them. DHL ships to us. They know what they're
They're like a
doing.
private courier or whatever, like,
Yeah,
right?
private courier. So this year, Brian spent, what did you spend? Like $29 to ship your entries to Homebrew, or HomebrewCon. I had been so frustrated with UPS. I wanted to do it the right way. I set up DHL. I paid $185 to ship, I think, half the entries that Brian was shipping, um, via DHL. They came, they picked them up. I'm like, are you cool with this? This is homebrew. They're like, yeah, man, no problem. Everything's fine. It makes it up to the DHL distribution center in Grand Rapids, where some supervisor named Travis decides to flag my fucking package as a dangerous goods and halts the whole damn process. They call me, they chew me out after all. After I actually showed them, I sent them the link, where Moorhead had been like, yeah, DHL, yeah, they can do it and they're fine. And I went on DHL's website and I can find nowhere where it says that they won't do this. There's nothing on any of their instructions that say that they won't ship alcohol. Getting this big fight with
At the
Travis
time.
at the time. Got in this big fight with a supervisor in Grand Rapids that was, halting this. And then he tells me, I'm sending your beer back. You'll have it tomorrow. Now, mind you, like, the beer's due like in 2 days. And so the next day comes, no package, no DHL. I mean, he was going to send it back by the courier. The courier was going to bring it back to my house. Nothing happens. So I finally call Travis again. I'm like, where the hell is my beer? Like, it's got to get, and there were beers in there that were like the last bottles I had. So it's not like I could make up another package and send it. At that point, he tells me that they mailed it back to me. Now I say mail, USPS mail, to which I told Travis, I'm like, do you realize that you're enforcing some unknown fucking rule on your side that you're not going to ship my alcohol, but you just broke the goddamn law mailing it back to me? And he's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like whatever. So a couple of irritated emails out to John Moorhead, and he agreed to, let my entries arrive late, because I didn't know when the post service was going to get me my fucking package. It wound up taking 3 days. I turned around, dropped it off at UPS. Thankfully, it got there. Whatever. Yeah, I've just had nothing but problems. But I really have had UPS interrogate me about what's in my package. I had one of the UPS sites, like, even after I told him whatever I told him it was in there, he still wanted to open it up and make sure it was packed correctly.
Without a pre-printed label, right?
Yeah. I have done the pre-printed label. I started to do the pre-printed label, and I still got it rejected once. Oh, so
What?
this is already, yeah. I've already made this complaint to our representatives in the AHA, and I believe it got changed. But there was a few years ago where, again, John Moorhead insisted the instructions to ship to National Homebrew Competition were that you must put NHC 2020.
Oh yeah.
Attention, blah blah blah. So I printed this label, I packaged it all up, I went down to the UPS shop, I dropped it off. Guess what? That guy's a home brewer. He knows what NHC is or whatever. Is he a cool home brewer? No, because he's like, no, I know what this is. Like, this is beer. And kicked me out. And to which I emailed John, I'm like, do I really have to fucking write NHC 2022 or 2020 or whatever the hell it was? And he stood his ground and he was like, yep, you have to put it on there. I know I bitched about this to Gail and Amy. If they're watching, I'm sorry. I know I bitched to a lot of people. I went to NHC. I actually think I bitched to Julia about this.
I feel like they changed it this year. I don't
yeah.
remember my entries having the word like beer or brew or anything in it. I'll have to go back and look, but
Yeah. So I was
I
just
feel
like,
like it was good this year.
seriously, you don't, it's a bottle of homebrew, or a box of homebrew. You don't need it to say attention, blah, 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 whatever.
Whenever I ship out beer to a competition and it's to like, say like a Northern brewer or something like that, I always abbreviate. I will never put anything that draws attention to alcohol in the name of the beer, even if it says to ship it to this place. I will always abbreviate it and make it like clear that it's supposed to go there. But like Northern Brewer, I send it to Northern B.
Yeah.
And like if it's to some homebrew shop, I will send it to such and such HB shop. I will never draw any attention to my package having beer in it, and I will abbreviate, and it's never had an issue getting there.
It actually makes me think. I'm going back to look at our site. So if you're shipping beers to Bell's, it's just Bell's General Store.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
There's no attention to. They'll open the box. They'll see that it's homebrew. Your labels say, Michigan Beer Cup, and they'll put it on the shelf. So you don't need to do that. And that was the thing before. Like I thought it was just a poor decision to be like, the box has to say NHC, because they advertise that. I actually did. I saw it. I was on Reddit. This one wasn't me, but on Reddit there was a post I saw that year, I think, where somebody had posted a flyer that they saw at UPS or whatever, like be on the lookout for packages going to NHC 2020.
Yeah, that was a FedEx thing, I think. Yeah,
or it was FedEx. You're right.
It was.
Yeah,
a bunch of them got held up in like Washington or Oregon or something.
Yep, because they were like, oh, anything that says NHC to this address, we know what it is now. So look, it's not illegal to do it through FedEx and UPS. It is against their rules, but it's not against the law. It is currently illegal to do it. Well, and I guess it's against their rules for DHL too, regardless of what.
So you found out.
Yeah, but
let's say now.
Well, so I got in that fight with Travis, and he said, no, it's on our site. And I said, send me the link. Like I've been all over your site. And he sent me a link to where the supposed rule was, and the link didn't work. Now this was years ago, so maybe they've changed. But yeah, if you can use a service like Brian mentioned, where you just create your label, you drop it off. I've even heard people doing great success with just scheduling pickup, because you just set it on your steps and they come and get it.
I did that in 2022. Yeah, because they required 6 bottles then for every entry for last year's NHC. Yeah. Yep.
But so packaging, that was a good talk.
All the packagings.
Remember, once again, since we still have people listening and watching, if you're going to be in the Detroit area at Rochester Mills production facility on June 3rd and 4th, and you can judge and or steward. Even if you're afraid to judge, like we'll help you through it, but please come out and give us a hand. I was really encouraged. So Brian judged Sicilianos, or some of the other keepers judged Sicilianos this past weekend, and said they had 32 judges. Last year at the Michigan Beer Cup, we had like 14. So I'd really like to see us get those numbers up. Hopefully giving enough notice is going to encourage some people to come down. But please stop by, help us out. And entries are still open. There's still 184 entries available for the Michigan Beer Cup. If you live in Michigan, it's an amazing comp to enter. We're gonna have a cool new medal. Gold medals win $50.
The medals are going to be so sweet this year. The prizes are great,
yeah.
For gold medal winners and stuff. We do want to do like bronze and silver and stuff for years coming up. I'm not sure what we're looking like for this year. It's for
Uh,
sure on the roadmap.
yeah, definitely. Guaranteed prizes this year for gold. Bronze and silver prizes coming in the year to come. I really am. I'm really close to even doing something for honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, hundred
even
percent.
even this year. So something
Okay,
little. So there may be a special honorable mention medal. It may be a little goofy, but whatever. Um, Something to recognize. And then we are doing the same. We're doing best of show beer, best of show mead cider. We're still doing the Shakespeare Award for the best named entry. Um,
we should put out a post for that because I
yeah,
don't think we've mentioned that yet this year.
and then we are also doing heavy metal, and then of course Club of the Year. So individual heavy metal will get an award as well. That hasn't happened in the last several years. So
So heavy metal is going to include metals that you, as the primary brewer on the beer, meddled with. It does not include secondary brewers. Is that
correct.
correct? Correct.
Correct. It will be the brewer with the most individual metals as primary brewer will be a heavy metal brewer.
Okay.
Or honorable mentions will count too. I'm sure honorable mentions will be like 1 point. Golds will
Sure.
be like
Yeah,
10 or something. I don't know.
yeah. I don't think it'll be that high, but
Yeah.
it's usually like 6, 4, 2, and 1 or something.
Yeah, I want to do some spread to it, but we are going to recognize honorable mentions. Um,
In the past, there has been honorable mentions have been asked to come out to be there for their call out, and there hasn't been anything exciting for them. So we want to make sure that even our honorable mentions, like,
yeah. So
if you're the fourth out of like 20 beers, that's still fucking great, right?
so I'll say this again. Story time. My very first year at MHF, and my very first year entering Michigan Beer Cup, I got that email that I got something honorable mention or better. I went out there. Yeah, it was 2 honorable mentions. I didn't get shit to go home with, but I met so many cool fucking people, and I got to learn what Michigan Homebrew Festival was, and I just fell in love with it. And so I thought it was an amazing experience just to go out. So last year, when somebody came up to me and they're like, I drove all this way just for an honorable mention. I didn't get shit. I was really bummed out.
That
Like,
sucks.
and you got to hang out in this cool fucking campground all day and drink all of this beer and meet all these cool people. Like that's what it's for. So I was actually excited to come out and get an honorable mention and not actually get anything. The
If I
experience
was
was
if
like,
I was told that, I understand. I would want my name to at least been called or something, like, I don't
well,
know.
we do call names. We'll call HMs. So we'll definitely call HMs. There may be, I'm not promising yet, but there may be a little something if you do get an honorable mention. Um, Award ceremony. So just to call it out, we are judging the first week of June. The award ceremony will still not happen until August. The reason for the gap between judging and award ceremony is um, we're up against the summer. We're up against National Homebrew Competition. We're up against Michigan State Fair. We're up against vacations. All the other shit that happens in June, July, and August make it really hard to have the judging close to the awards. So that's why the judging is going to take place June 3rd and 4th, and the awards are going to the award ceremony will be on August 19th or 20th. Um, in between there, we are going to see if we can publish score sheets so you get something.
Is that something that you that are here still listening, like, would be interested in? Like,
Yeah,
do you want your score sheet before like any placement? Like, is that something that you think you guys would be interested in?
yeah.
Like,
Leave us a comment.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
know, I know that Blair at Michigan State Fair does that, right? Blair judges beer the either last week of July or first week of August. He publishes score sheets, and then the award ceremony is in September. Um, so if you want your score sheets, we're going to try to get them out. All right, Danny says yes. So we'll try to get them out as quickly as we can. Brian and I are still learning the system, so we're gonna do what we can. But the awards is going to be August. Fuck, what is it?
19th or something.
It's 19th or 20th, August 19th or 20th at MHF, just like in the past years. So it will be the 19th.
Boom.
So
boom.
trying to rack up the 43. He's talking about the Master Homebrewer program.
Danny has one of these now. This little Grandmaster badge. He's going to surpass me soon. I haven't got a 43 in like a month. So
see what Danny has that Brian doesn't have are the best of show buttons.
I don't have a single. I have 3 second best of shows and not a single ever first best of show.
Danny, how many best of shows do you have? I feel like it's going to be like rings like Tom Brady.
Yeah, I need those. I need those. I think it's still a bronze star under like 500 entries or something, and a silver star over like 500 entries, something like that. more than Brian. Yeah, that's fair. one day.
All right.
So to recap, you already talked about the Michigan Beer Cup. For our packaging talk, really limit oxygen, 3 syllables, exposure as much as you can, no matter how you package your beer. Whether you want to, send it out for comps or drink it for the long haul, like it will do you good just to put a little bit more effort potentially into limiting the oxygen wherever you can. Different packaging methods have different, advantages and disadvantages. Kegging is obviously a little bit quicker. Bottling is a little bit slower, but somehow, maybe a little bit more like intimate or fun. Like I still have thoughts about bottling my first homebrew, and it's totally an experience that I think everybody should have. So it's very much a hazing, if you will, for getting in on the hobby, probably. There's different equipment, to get you different results.
Yeah.
We'll post some videos out later to hopefully recap a little bit of what we talked about today, but really appreciate you guys sticking with us. Please come out and help us at the Michigan Beer Cup. Again,
and
stewards are mini judges. If you're interested in beer at all, we will teach you how to steward. And I guarantee you will fall in love with homebrew competitions. There's going to be so many great people out there. We're going to make sure to take care of our stewards as much as we possibly can. You are more important than judges. You make the competition go around. Our judges are just word machines. All they're there for is to put words on paper. Stewards make the competition
happen.
So.
And then MHF is the 3rd weekend in August. If you're in Michigan, it is going to be amazing as always. It's a great time to come out and celebrate and get to know the homebrewers in the state and try some amazing beer. So we'll be back in the near future with the next episode that we can't talk about because we don't know what the fuck it is yet. And we're still working towards episode 100. And we've got a couple of things lined up, but stay tuned. Thanks,
y'all. We'll
Cheers.
catch you soon. Cheers. Are you doing it?
I was gonna, yeah. Fine.